what's up?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the program.
The Airtime Podcast is presented by Van Shoes since 1966. 66!
There's nothing fake about it. Have something to believe in and be yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Chris Rasma, ladies and gentlemen, a very close friend of mine. You've definitely heard of him. You probably think he's just this guy that you can't relate to because he goes so much bigger than everybody else. And it's true. There's not a lot of people that can relate to him because this motherfucker is going huge. I mean, I'm surprised Red Bull hasn't picked him up yet. I'm not trying to plug Red Bull. I'm just saying he's the athlete that should be on Red Bull. I think Chris, given the opportunity and given the snow conditions, would just see how far a human could go flying through the air into powder. And I think he would land it. He's so calculated. Seeing him ride over the last few years has been insane. He went from kind of frothy kind of kid, just like me, to land, you're landing a few jumps and you're landing on a few step downs and, you're learning all the pieces to the puzzle. But there is that one point, and we all have this friend, that at one point you watch them and it just clicks. You come over to your friend's house, you're playing James Bond GoldenEye, and one day your friend Tom is good, like headshot, kill, kill, kill. Nintendo 64. If you didn't have that, I'm sorry, your childhood was suppressed, or you're just a lot younger, which is also fine. That means that you're probably playing COD. It's the same thing. You come over, Tom's killing it, headshots. That's Chris Rasma with snowboarding in a nutshell. One day, it just clicked. I mean, the homie goes out there and he stacks clips. He looks at a face, he knows exactly what he's capable of, and what he's capable of for most regular snowboarders like us seems insane, especially when you see the stuff firsthand. I mean, hot damn, he's done some of the biggest backcountry tricks, I think possibly to date. He has a cab 9 off the Lucas Huffman step down. I actually recently posted it. My Instagram blew up with people being like, what? He literally jumped over the hill I used to snowboard at in Manitoba, Spring Hill Winter Park. It must be the same size. All right, a little side note here. We did wander off topic and talk about World War II and the encounter between Hitler and Mussolini. I know, it's a podcast, we got sidetracked. And we talk about how Hitler is trying to convince Mussolini, the Italian leader, to become part of the Nazi army to help them win World War II. There might be an historian listening to this and being like, that's not actually the case, but that's pretty much the premise. Anyways, I looked into what Chris said during that discussion, and sure enough, it is factual. So, just so you know, when that crazy story ends, it was real. That shit happened. Also, I actually say some numbers after Chris, and upon further research, my numbers are completely wrong. Just so you know, this is a snowboard podcast, and everything we say on here may or may not be factual, but we're trying with the best intent to give you factual information, and yes, you might want to take everything with a grain of salt. Chris and I have an amazing discussion. I feel like you guys are going to have a lot of takeaway from this. I'm a big fan of Chris. I feel like Rider of the Year, Men's Video Part, etc. are all in store for Chris. This guy is insane out there. He's consistent. He's safe. He knows what he's doing. He's calculated. I kind of went through all those things, but I can't stress them enough. Watching this guy ride live is mind-blowing. Anyways, enough from me. Let's get to the show.
Thank you for having me, Jody.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for coming over. You literally live down the street, so I'm glad you took the time out of your busy schedule to migrate over here.
Yeah, and I actually have been kind of busy lately. It's been a lot of work, been a lot of foiling. It's just been my new summer addiction, which I'm sure if you follow me on Instagram, you've seen a lot of people out there wondering what the hell hydrofoiling is and why the hell I'm doing it. But
well, that is our question. What is hydrofoiling?
Okay, so this is like, so many of my friends are so over hearing me talk about this because it's like all I've been talking about since I've been doing it. But I haven't had something at this level, like at this level of obsession for so long. Like other than snowboarding, even surfing hasn't like taken my mind quite like this has. So basically what hydrofoiling is, it's old, it's like old military technology that they used to put on like jet boats, and sailboats have had them. And it's like a metal mast with a wing, and the wing has like airplane technology. Like there's a front wing, there's a fuselage, there's a tail wing, and that creates lift in the water just the same way that like a plane would lift in the air. And so this thing goes on the bottom of your surfboard, and instead of like surfing the surface of the water, you're basically surfing the energy below the surface of the water. Does that make sense?
Yes, totally.
Okay. So every wave and every like wind chop has like some energy below the surface of the water. So if you're normal surfing, you're like kind of using, like you are using the energy of the wave, but you're also kind of just using gravity. Like the surfboard is picking up speed as it's going down the face of the wave. But with a hydrofoil, you're surfing that energy in the water below the surface. So the front wing is like picking up like any little bit of moving water and any bit of energy, and it's creating lift. So the hydrofoil is like flying, and then your surfboard's just like floating. But it's super weird, and it's like kind of kooky. But
that
it's
example that you just were talking about was directed towards ocean surfing, correct?
Yeah, totally.
Okay. But you've done both. You've been on the ocean with Gabe Langlois, Noah, and Travis Rice just a second ago, and you were also hanging out with like me and Belzo behind like a boat at a lake. So you could really hydrofoil anywhere.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is like, so it's like, obviously everybody knows what wake surfing is, but wake surfing, you have to do it correctly, you basically have to be so tight in the pocket, because that's where like the energy source is of this wave, this artificial wave that the boat is creating. Like there's not much energy there. But with a foil, you really don't need much. So you can pretty much surf a half a foot wave, or you can surf a wind chop in the middle of the ocean. Like the reason it's so exciting to me is it opens up the entire body of the ocean to being surfable, instead of just being limited to surf like only when the conditions are good. So yeah,
I've seen you doing it and posting it, and you are a happy man when you are on that foil. So, we were at Anderson Lake, a whole group of us, and actually at your cottage, or your girlfriend Lucy's cottage, and Mikey came out with his Sea-Doos, and there was a bunch of Sea-Doos in the water, and you were foiling, and I was on a boat, and I was like, what is going on right now? Like I was like mind blown by like what I was watching in a boat. I was like, because you can't really comprehend foiling until you watch it. And it's a lot of leg movement. You were doing squats 24/7 on that thing. You're going to be ripped this year.
Yeah, hopefully. I don't know. Everyone keeps on saying that to me. Everyone's like, oh, dude, you're going to go into the season so strong. And like, you'd think so, because it's like the pumping motion. For anyone listening, if you go onto my Instagram, I've posted probably 5 or 6 foiling Instagrams this summer. You can kind of get like a rough idea, or you can just Google hydrofoil surfing and see what I'm trying to articulate right now. But you'd think it makes you stronger, but then at the same time, anytime you start the snowboard season, you do your first run and your legs are kind of fucked anyways. I feel like it's all different muscles.
It's weird.
I'm sure it's keeping me in shape to some level.
I've seen you yet. You look like you're in shape.
It's funny because it's definitely like, it's not very cool looking right now. Like it's definitely one of those sports that doesn't really have a lot of style or flavor to it, in my opinion. Like it just kind of looks like a balancing act. Like even the guys that are really good at foiling, they're basically like, I don't know, they look like they're standing on like a gym balance ball, and they're just kind of like doing these subtle movements to turn. Like everything is really like kind of funny looking and awkward. It's not even that impressive when you see photos of it. It only starts being impressive when you like see it live or see video of it.
Or have tried
it. Yeah. So for anyone listening that's a surfer or has a boat and has the ability to wake surf behind a boat, I would recommend you try hydrofoiling, because I have, and it's epic, and it's all I want to do now in the summer. So
Rasman wants to build the community of hydrofoiling is rather small, and he would like you to join the club.
Are
you sponsored by hydrofoiling? You got a free board, didn't you?
No, I didn't get a free board.
You got a discount.
I got half off on the foil setup. Thank you, Lift Foils, for hooking it up.
That's like a flow. There's lots of kids like that's like a rep rider.
Yeah,
that's like a bunch of kids at Seymour who are getting boards for like 50% off.
Dude, that's a big deal too, because their foils aren't cheap. It's not a poor man's activity.
How much is a foil?
Dude, so I got cost on my setup, and with 2 different wing sizes, a mast, a tail wing, no board, it was like $2,300.
So it'd be like $5,000.
Maybe not 5, but
A solid 4.
Solid 4.
So you're
'Cause
like
it's all
in the
like there's
mountain
no one in
bike-
Canada making it either, right? So you're paying in like American dollars or Australian dollars. Like there's
But you don't need a lift ticket, and the
Don't need a
waves
lift
can
ticket.
suck.
the waves can suck.
I've seen you in the
Like-
water literally lapping surfers. So the surfers are trying to pump these mushy waves, and you're just literally lapping them. It looks like you have a rope tow out in the ocean,
Yeah.
and you're just lapping people.
Yeah.
Like,
And
do you think the surfing community respects foiling? And like, do you like foiling as much as you like snowboard or surfing?
No. So foiling,
Two different things for you.
Yeah, like in my opinion, hydrofoil surfing is never going to replace just normal surfing, because it's like it's not as rippable. You can't have as much style, and like you're just, at least right now, like maybe I'm sure the gear is going to advance, and I'm sure people foiling are going to advance like exponentially. But as of right now, I don't see it ever replacing it. Nothing's ever going to replace the feeling of getting barreled. Nothing's ever going to replace the feeling of like smacking your fins out on a wave. But the enticing part of it, and the reason that any like pro surfers or anyone who's like really good at surfing and has tried foiling is catching onto it and is wanting to foil, is because it opens up the whole ocean. Because you can go out, the waves can suck, and you can still have a time, and you can, like, last time I was foiling on the island, I think I spent like 3 minutes in a row or 4 minutes in a row on my feet, like before falling.
Wow.
That's just from like surfing a wave, pumping back out to another one, surfing another wave. Like, it's insane.
I'm normally on my surfboard for 5 seconds a day, and that's like when I'm going in the whitewash, and then I stand
That
up
was probably
after
really loud.
being on my knees.
Sorry, guys.
No, you can have beer, dude. That's fine. I think everybody on this podcast is pro beer. There's probably a few people that are allergic to gluten, but you're pretty health conscious, I would say. Are you a supporter of the beer, or just everything in moderation, or are you down? Do you think that is there good carbs in there?
I don't know. I'm sure there's something in certain beers that isn't bad for you, but I don't think beer is very good for you. I just think it's enjoyable, and you gotta kind of, you can't live your life like perfectly. You got to do some things that aren't the greatest for you if they are a lot of fun. And I say that statement lightly, but yeah, I like beer. I'm a pretty healthy person. I'm pretty conscious about what I put into my body and how I take care of myself, especially more so,
I would say that's an
going into my
understatement.
30s,
I would
but-
say you're one of the healthiest people I know, or the most, you're very aware, You go
I think
out,
that's-
obviously you enjoy like your pizza and stuff, but I've gone to your house and seen what you actually have in your own house.
Yeah.
What is and you do this whole like intermittent fasting, you have like a bunch of, mainly I feel like rubbed off from your dad.
For
who's
sure.
very
Yeah.
health aware and is very active and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The guy can walk on a tightrope and do like a 360 1-foot leg squat or whatever.
It's probably
what
just
would
doing
your
that to
what's your
impress
diet
whatever
consist
girls
of?
were around.
What is your diet?
Well,
I'm interested. People on this podcast want to stay healthy so they can snowboard forever.
yeah.
You've came off of leg injuries. You've
Knee
gone
injuries,
through it. You've stayed in shape. You're not going small. You need to be in shape to go as big as you're going.
Yeah.
What are you
Well,
putting in that body?
I think I do have my, like, not just my dad, but my whole family to kind of thank for that mentality. My brother, my sister, my mom, and my dad have all like, my whole family's always been like really conscious of like longevity and like, you are what you eat, what you put in your body is going to affect you later. And for coming from a family where like everyone likes to surf and snowboard, like everyone wants to do that into an old age, but you don't really think about it when you're young. Like when you're in your teens or when you're in your 20s, it's so easy to just like, keep on drinking, keep on smoking cigarettes, smoke a ton of weed, have pizza. Like it's just so easy to do all those things. But then all of a sudden you wake up one day and you're not 22 anymore, you're 28 and like,
There are
your
side
back's a little bit
effects.
sore. Yeah. And like, oh, maybe I should have rehabbed that ankle a little bit longer. Like I rolled in the skate park and I didn't do anything and now it's stiff. And I don't know. So I think for me, like it just kind of, I was lucky to have that knowledge passed to me pretty early. And I just try and be like everything in moderation. Like don't not have junk food, don't not drink beer, but just be aware that everything, like this shit is fuel. Like your body needs to eat, your body needs to drink fluids, and your body turns that into energy. It takes the vitamins out of that. It takes whatever's in that and it goes into the rest of your body, goes into your blood cells, goes into everything. So it's like, I don't know, you literally are what you eat. For me, I just try and stay like as up on the current health fads or health trends as much as possible. Like I talk to my sister, she's super into it and gives me tips about it.
What does your sister do? Isn't she a nutritionist or something?
Yeah, she went to school for nutrition. So she's a nutritionist, and she actually right now just signed up for massage therapy school. So she wants to be an RMT.
Okay.
And she wants to like possibly figure out a way where she can be like an RMT, but also combine her like nutrition skills or nutrition knowledge with her massage degree and do like consultations where she's like kind of helping written diets for people and kind of that.
That's amazing. That's the best thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
We will get back to what Chris actually consumes on a day-to-day because I feel like people will be interested in this. But a little sidetrack here. That is like, I'm in a little bit of like a rehab program, just like working out some kinks or whatever.
Yeah.
And
you're back?
No, I fractured my collarbone.
Oh,
I'm fine. It's like 95. I'm just like working out those last kinks. But it's insane that somebody will take you to the gym, give you all these practices, all these exercises, like, and they're so specific. They know so much about the human body. And then you're like, what are you having for lunch today? They're like, oh, I'm going to go to Subway or whatever. And you're like, they only have half of it figured out because, I mean, you need to put in good food to your stomach and then it gets absorbed. Is that and then it gets all passed around, like you said, in the blood cells, and then your body's happy.
Yeah. I mean,
then you can actually and then that injury has all these extra nutrients and it just like white blood cells and stuff, right? And then you're feeling better.
Yeah. I mean, you're like, if you start to eat really healthy, and like we can get into what that means if you want to like what I actually eat, what my diet looks like, but if you start doing that for a while, you'll start noticing that your body will literally tell you what it needs. Like sometimes I'll be like really craving greens. I'm sure you felt this too. You're like, oh my God, I need some, like I want a salad tonight. I need some spinach. I need some kale or whatever. And then sometimes I'll be like really craving red meat. Like I'm like, I need a fucking steak tonight, or and that's like, that'll often happen in the winter where you've been like cold all day and you've been hiking or like building a jump, and you can write that off to just being like, oh yeah, that's just what I'm feeling like right now. But everything is connected, and that's more than just what you think you're feeling, what you think you want. That is literally your body telling you like, you need this, like you need some protein, you need some iron or whatever. Anyways, I'm not a scientist. This is all just like regurgitated information from people who I respect, who like podcasts I've listened to, people I've talked to. But
I mean, you're talking to the right people. I mean, your dad, I would say, when cause my girlfriend has Crohn's disease. And when she was going through that whole thing, I would say that when he was having some conversations with her and she was kind of like meeting up with him for just some, I don't know, an extra opinion other than like a doctor's opinion.
When my dad was meeting up with her? Yeah.
And like he said like a lot of interesting stuff that was like outside of like the norm of what she was getting from like the hospital and stuff. So I think that you are getting passed down a lot of information that is factual.
Valuable. Yeah.
And it's not that you're getting like information that's like loosely put by like Joe Schmo. I mean, like your sister knows what she's talking about.
Totally.
Your dad knows what he's talking about.
Nutrition and the medical system will always be like this. Like they'll kind of always be butting heads, hopefully not forever. In a perfect world, as far as like human health goes, the traditional medical system and nutritionists need to like join forces and work like fluidly together. So, cause sometimes you fucking need antibiotics. Like if you cut your leg open in Indonesia and you have a gnarly infection, like you better take some antibiotics or your legs need to get amputated. Like
peppermint oil isn't going to save you.
No, you're not. Yeah, exactly. And like, the anti-vax movement, like I don't know much about that, but that's a whole nother political conversation. But there are definitely times like traditional medicine has saved people. And like, if we didn't have traditional medicine, a lot of us would be dead or wouldn't be around right now because our grandparents would be dead.
For sure.
Totally. So I think we're moving into an era where those two industries, or those two, the separation between nutrition and the traditional medical system, are starting to work more together
100%.
And are starting to accept each other more. But right now in 2019, it's still not enough. Like I see, my sister has one of her best friends is an actual doctor. So it's like my sister went to school to be a nutritionist, and obviously that's like shorter time in school. And then her best friend went to school to be a doctor. And she's basically got this chip on her shoulders of all the time she spent in school and the money. So she's like very quick to throw something at my sister, like, oh, there's no way that, you know, that would work because the acidity levels in your stomach are too high. Like, you just need to take this pill. Like, no, that wouldn't work. You need to take antibiotics. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think there's a balance. I think
It's like a step in the right direction has been, and this gets brought up a lot, but I mean, we are snowboarders, is the whole cannabis being legal.
Yeah.
And the health benefits that come along with either cannabis or CBD, which
Totally.
is the same thing.
We have a mutual friend that I don't want to say on air out of respect to their privacy, but we have a mutual friend that fought cancer, like the cancer's in remission. And the way that person did it, what basically they went to a doctor and the doctor was like, I will not treat you if you're listening to that nutritionist and taking this like
Treat you with
CBD
like
stuff.
chemo or something?
Totally.
Yeah.
Like, would not give this person treatment if they were also doing like CBD and all this stuff the nutritionist was said. And this person in his or her head was like, fuck that. I'm going to do both and I'm just not going to tell you. So they kept on taking the stuff that the nutritionist was telling them to take, but then also went to chemo and just combined both of them. And
The yin
the
and
cancer's
yang.
in remission right now. And like, you know, they're in the clear, like, knock on wood.
Yeah, for sure.
And you know, obviously not everyone's scenario can be that perfect, but yeah, I just think that like, I don't know, you can't, a lot of doctors are, again, I'm not a doctor, but it feels like a lot of doctors are still going by a book that was written in like the 50s.
Yeah. And
It's
I
all
mean,
about-
when you go to a school, there's a certain element and a certain structure
Yeah.
founded around that school. And that school has worked with these professors and these profs, et cetera, et cetera. And that's where they've gotten their information. And boom, that information is stamped as this is the correct information.
Yeah.
But there's
totally.
constantly new research. There's constantly new data coming out of like, well, what about this plant in this part of the country that, you know, if you derive this from it, that property, I'm kind of diving into cannabis again, but like CBD being derived from cannabis and the non-psychoactive property, CBD is actually really,
Pretty magical-
I know
magical
my aunt has
substance.
arthritis and she's been using it and she's been like, you know, no pain.
My dog's back is fucked from like, I don't know if it was like a growth thing or him being the runt. And we started giving him like pet grade CBD and it like helps him so much. I don't know. I have this like theory in my head that's like a totally made up theory, but I kind of hope it's real. And I feel like it should be real. I feel like in our natural environment, because there's so much about our natural environment that we haven't discovered yet. And I'm talking like plants, like, you know, mycelium, fungus, all this stuff. There's so much stuff that we don't know what it is, especially in a place like the Amazon. Like, we know barely anything about it. We like to think we know a lot, but there's a lot of undiscovered species. I feel like for every disease and every weird thing out there that kills people, there's a combination or a mixture or just a specific plant that can cure it. Like in nature.
I love it. You should write a book one day.
Yeah,
This is going to be good.
my limited podcast knowledge and my grade 12 education. But I don't know. I think it's like, I'm not a specialist in any of this shit, but
No, I totally agree,
like
though.
to focus on stuff I'm interested in. And I absorb information best when I'm really interested in it. And this is like something that
I believe
I really
that
like.
that you're onto something there.
Yeah.
Or I fully back that. I mean, the more like another great example about CBD being like, you know, showcasing its amazing health benefits is Derek. So Demo just gets
Totally.
out of the hospital.
Yeah,
they put
broken
him on
back.
like T4s or Valium and all these.
Yeah.
He says
take
he's
all these
just
gnarly
out to lunch.
painkillers that'll like fucking constipate you and get you addicted. And I'm like, oh man.
Yeah. So he was
like-
on those for like a long period of time. And then eventually he was like, okay, screw this. I'm going to try doctor. Like I'm going to my doctor. He gets CBD off them
Yeah.
because he's feeling like crap. And then sure enough, he completely weans off the pharmaceutical drugs. He's on CBD and he says it not only made him like his diet go back to normal, his head cleared up. I mean, he was just like so much comes with those pharmaceutical drugs. And I mean, like you said, they do serve a purpose and a huge purpose. If you get a giant gouge
Yeah.
in
Totally.
Bali and you need
Or if your
penicillin.
pain is so fucking gnarly from like your burn victim or something and you need those opioids or those T3s or whatever to just get normal sleep. Like, yeah, of course there's time and place for everything, but you know, Derek's a perfect example. Him healing from his back injury, when he got off that stuff and he was just using his normal routine, smoking a bit of weed, taking CBD, he probably was like less depressed about his injury because his brain was back in a normal creative state where he could just like be himself and have normal creative conversations and not just be sitting there on his couch, like being more depressed about his injury because he can't even think clearly. Like that's
fully. Okay. So I did say we would get back to what are you eating?
Oh, okay.
What's your program? I know you have one in the summer.
Yeah.
I just want you to like, are you still doing that?
Yeah. So the intermittent fasting thing is something that I've been experimenting with just to see how my body reacts to it. There's this doctor that I've heard on the Joe Rogan podcast like 3 times now she's been on. What's her name? Dr. Rhonda Patrick is her name. And she's like a health specialist. She's kind of like the cutting edge of, nutrition and medical science, all this stuff. And I just kind of really like her vibe. I like her energy. And so even though, again, I'm not a doctor, because I like how she speaks and she seems like she's really knowledgeable, I've kind of been like following a lot of stuff that she's been saying. So in the winter, I don't intermittent fast because we're just doing too much traveling, go. It's cold. You're burning so many calories. I just find I operate better in the winter, like when we're snowmobiling and doing all that stuff, when I eat breakfast. But in the summer, when I'm down to a normal work schedule and it's easy to like maintain a consistent eating schedule, I basically stop consuming calories at like 9 p.m. and then I don't consume any calories again until 12 the next day. And I'll do my best to explain the purpose of that because I know intermittent fasting is like super hip and trendy right now. But basically what it's doing is some people are doing it for weight loss because there's a lot of like studies that show it's, beneficial for losing like belly fat and all this stuff. But more so than that, there's all this research saying now that your body needs to be in like a hungry state for a few hours a day where you're not spending all this energy digesting food. It needs to have that hungry state to like cure your body and heal your body on a cellular level. So like your DNA, all of these like little molecules in your body basically need time to like heal and regenerate. And they won't do that the same way if you're constantly digesting food. And for so many years, the human race has never had to worry about being hungry, right? We've had food like right at our doorstep, right in our cupboard. And so we've just been conditioned to, and like, I'm super guilty of this. I'm like such a snacker. Like I'm always consuming calories. I always have been. So for me, I was like, okay, that's like something I should definitely experiment with. Cause yeah, even though I'm in shape and I'm healthy, like I probably eat too much. And I think most humans eat too much anyways. But yeah, so I've been experimenting with intermittent fasting for the last few summers. I do on weekends, I eat whatever I want. So I'll like still wake up and have like a, big breakfast on Saturday and Sunday and just like, enjoy myself. Or even if it's a weekday and one of my friends hits me up and wants to go for breakfast, I'll do that. So I'm not like OCD.
You're not a psycho about it.
I'm not a psycho. I'm still enjoying my life. But I find when I do it and I get into routine, it's really, really easy to do. It's like totally not that hard once you do it for a couple of days. And I've noticed some positive.
You do feel better though. That's my question.
Yeah. Like, and you feel like more on it and more alert. Like I ate before I came here because I didn't eat this morning. So I was like, oh, I got to eat some food. But I honestly feel like if you would like do a podcast, even while you're intermittent fasting and like while you're a little bit hungry, your brain would be sharper. Like, yeah, you might be thinking about food here and there. You might be thinking, oh, it'd be nice when this podcast is over to go get like a slice of pizza or pasta lupino or whatever. But you just feel like sharper, more alert. You feel like lighter. And yeah, I don't know. It's kind of hard to like pinpoint what I'm feeling. It's not this like drastic, amazing effect. And I don't think I would have the same like energy bursts that I would have if I had breakfast. Like, the energy bursts that you would need if you were like, snowboarding in the park or, doing what we do. But it's perfect for the summer. It works.
And you believe in the research behind it that's allowing your body to go from like digesting to helping its other cells like regenerate or do whatever.
More so than the direct effects that I'm noticing, I believe in science and I believe in the research on it. Right now, like the stuff that they're saying about it right now is really compelling to me. And I'm like, I want to be a part of that. That totally makes sense. Why are we always full? Why are we always snacking? So it just makes sense to me. So I'm like,
in the morning
you
get up and you have what, a bag of chips? No, obviously not.
Circle back to what I'm actually eating.
Just lemon? Like, what do you just drink water until noon?
I drink water. Else? Yeah. I've for the last few years, I wake up in the morning and before I even get out of bed, I drink like half a liter of water. Not
before
lemon
you get
water.
out of bed.
Yeah. Like before
so you have a bottle of water beside the bed.
I have a hydro flask like filled with like 500 mils of water. And I like just chug the whole thing before I even get out of bed. Because there's some research showing that that's a good way to just kind of get your system started. Like just putting water in you before you do anything else is, I don't know. I'm going to butcher the explanation, but I heard it's good. So that's the first thing I do. And then when I'm intermittent fasting, I have black coffee. Just black coffee, nothing in it. Don't go overboard with it, like 1 cup. And then the key thing when you're doing intermittent fasting is it's not a free for all. You don't want to just eat whatever you want in that 8-hour window that you are eating, like in the, noon to 8 or noon to 9 o'clock or whatever it is. You can't just be like, yeah, pizza, chips, chocolate. You want your first meal to be like really healthy and then, relatively healthy for the rest of the day. So my first meal is like either like eggs and avocados or like, veggies and some hummus and some meat or something like that. But like I try and make my first meal like pretty clean, pretty carb and sugar free, basically.
That's good. Similar, like
high fat, high protein.
Similar to keto, I guess.
Yeah, keto-ish. I mean, a lot of people that intermittent fast, they go ketogenic and they kind of combine the two, and then they try and get their body into a state of ketosis, which ketosis basically means if your body is running in ketosis, it means your body is burning fat instead of carbohydrates and sugars. So you can basically train your body to burn fats. You're eating like a high fat diet, but like no sugar, no carbs. I don't know. I don't really mess with that because I want to enjoy life and still enjoy what I eat.
I have a buddy who lives in Ottawa, Sunny, and he's been doing keto for probably, I don't actually know how long, but I think it's like the 6 month to a year mark. And buddy is looking
He looks great, him.
Yeah. Like
Probably
healthy,
shredded.
not like weird, like going to the gym too much look, but like, one of those like, that guy just looks like a nice, healthy human.
Totally.
And I don't know. I was thinking about trying it, but frick, I love potatoes.
I know. Dude, actually, there's some
And I like
new
rice.
research that potatoes aren't that bad for you.
So what do you
There's
think about deep fried chips though?
Yeah, the chips are gnarly. Like I fucking love chips. I
Or
have such a
jalapeno
chip.
poppers,
Oh, dude.
matzo sticks.
So good. Oh my God. Can't stop eating matzo sticks.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, no, there's a new study I just heard about actually talked about potatoes, and potatoes aren't as bad for you as we thought they were like, 5-6 years ago. So potatoes are a lesser of the several evils when it comes to carbs. Like if you want a carb, potatoes are better than pasta. They're better than bread.
I believe that for sure. Potato over pasta, like pasta is like made from grains.
Yeah,
where
totally.
a potato
It's
is just a potato.
Yeah, I mean, it's a root, grows in the
I
ground.
mean, it grows in the ground. I'm assuming if you watered it normally and not watered with like Miracle Grow, because I'm assuming a potato absorbs a lot of the shit that you would spray on it.
I would imagine what I mean? If you really think about it, like, again, I don't know the science to this, but if you think about a root vegetable, it is literally absorbing the soil around
Like a
it.
carrot?
Yeah, totally. It's absorbing everything that's around it.
Totally.
Or like mushrooms. Mushrooms are crazy.
They are crazy.
They're fucking crazy.
Regular mushrooms or like psychedelic?
Well, both.
Psilocybin mushrooms.
Psilocybin's crazy too. But
Both are crazy. Have you ever done mushrooms? Have you experimented with them?
yeah, totally.
Totally?
Yeah,
The
mushrooms are fun.
non-psychoactive and the, psychoactive?
Well, I really like non-psychoactive mushrooms. I really like eating. Like, I think they taste delicious, and I think they're super good for you.
What about psychoactive?
And I think that's...
Do you think they taste good?
I think they taste like shit, but I think that's like probably one of the most fun drugs out there. But I wouldn't recommend anyone to just go do it. I'm not saying that. But I kind of also think if you are 30 years old and you have lived your whole life without a psychedelic experience, you probably should have one.
Yeah.
So I think the world would be a better place if everyone did.
I think I totally agree. I think there's some people out there that should just not do it. There's no
like
need. But there's some
schizophrenics
people that
or-
maybe that experience would be, Brian on the last podcast, Brian McClatchy said drugs
Epic
potentially
podcast,
could
by
save
the
the
way.
world.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe some people took that out of context, but I think what he was saying that is if people smoked a little weed, did a little bit of mushrooms, did a little bit of like those cactuses. Do
Like
you think
ayahuasca?
people would be, ayahuasca, DMT, whatever. Do you think people would be going around being like, I'm going to blow shit up and like mass murder people? Like, I feel like people would be like, that's the least thing on my mind. I don't know why I'm talking like the Beatles, but like,
That's the least thing on my mind.
maybe we should just do a painting and all be nice to each other. I don't know. Like,
Take
I think
my eyes, but not the Tommy Bahamas.
like maybe someone should have gave Hitler a bunch of weed.
I heard, I don't know how they figured this out, but I heard recently that there's some evidence that Hitler was like constantly on like liquid meth and
Oh, yeah. All of
Adderall
those.
and all that fucking
The last
shit.
year, from 1944 to 1945, they were
Yeah.
like handing out to the troops because they
Totally,
were like
the Nazi
running out
troops.
of them. They were trying to make these like super troops.
Yeah.
And so they were giving them all these
They're all high
like
on meth, all the Nazis.
methamphetamine kind of things. So they would go like instead of going like 12 kilometers overnight, they would do like 100 kilometers.
Mm-hmm.
And so the enemy would be like, what? These guys are machines, not knowing that they're all hopped up on meth or like a form of meth.
Yeah. Well, I heard again, so there's going to be a lot of referencing podcasts on this podcast, because that's where I get most of my knowledge outside of snowboarding. Because let's face it, I never went to school. All I do is snowboard now. So
let's face it.
But anyways, on a podcast recently, one of the things it was this historian talking to Joe Rogan. And I guess when Hitler went to meet up with Mussolini, like the leader of Italy at the time, he was like going to meet with him to like, get him to join the Nazi army and get him to like, the fight against the Jews or whatever. And apparently Mussolini was going into that meeting being like, we don't want any part of this. Like, we just want to not be a part of the war, basically. Like, we want to stand back. We don't want to fight with the Nazis. Hitler gets off the plane, has a doctor with him, says he's really tired and he needs some energy. So the doctor gives him a shot of liquid cocaine and Adderall. And there's like, fuck, give me another. Like, I want another. And he's like, no, Mr. Hitler, like, we cannot. It's dangerous. Like, one more could kill you. And they're like, give me a fucking another. And apparently he took two, like made his doctor give him a second one, which the doctor did not want to give him. Rolls into this meeting with Mussolini, just fucking sweating and jacked up on cocaine and Adderall, and talks for 5 hours without Mussolini barely getting a word in. And just like screaming about his whole plan and blah, 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 blah. And the Jews this and blah, blah, blah. And then the meeting ends and Mussolini's like, I guess Italy's fighting the war with the Germans. And so I don't know how this is.
And
like, I don't know where that came
Burgundy?
from. Yeah, I'm wrong, Burgundy. But yeah, I thought that was a pretty cool story. But back to the other drugs. I think like earth drugs or psychedelics, I'm not saying they're for everyone, but kind of on board with what Brian was saying. I think if more egotistical people or negative people had a psychedelic experience in their life, I think it would bring them down a level, because those drugs just kind of, they take away your ego. They like remove that, and they just kind of make you a bit more like self-aware and a bit more like, oh, it's not all about me. There's this whole bigger picture and like all these other people in front of me. Then like every single person I see is the star of their own movie. It's not just about my movie,
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
And you're like, oh, my parents' expectations of me actually don't matter that much.
Totally.
As long as I'm a good person.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I actually did I did a podcast recently with this guy he does I'm such a dork with the hydrofoiling, but I found out about a foiling podcast when I was like super into it and I am super into it and I have nobody to talk to about it because I'm the only one that does it here. So I started listening to this foiling podcast, and like, cause I was like building my own boards and shit and just trying to figure out like what to do. Anyways, this guy, I started liking his stuff on Instagram, and he sent me a message and he's like, hey, I'm doing this, starting this new series about flow. Like, do you know what flow is? Like the flow state?
Flow state?
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like Travis Rice is in flow state 24/7.
Yeah. Probably.
Did you see the pillow line he rode the other day?
Yeah, dude, it's insane.
How did he navigate down that thing?
You should see his
flow state.
He showed me a rough cut of the project him and Elias Alhart did in the Tortorellas this year, and they basically scored like polar opposite conditions that Travis and I scored on truffle pigs. He told me it was like we got royally fucked on truffle pigs with conditions, and he's like, it was a polar opposite of that. Best Tortorellos ever gets.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways, so I did this podcast on flow state with this guy, and how did we even go there? Why did I start talking about this pod?
Well, we were talking about Hitler for a bit.
Okay.
And then,
one of the things one of the epiphanies we had when we were talking about flow state and how like sick it is to be on that level and to open it up with, I hate this term, but with like action sports, or maybe it's art, or maybe it's your music, or whatever it is you do, is we feel like it's such a rad state to be in, and people that have passions and are constantly chasing it all the time, like, are all like-minded, that if more of the world experienced flow state like that more often, I think the world would be a better place. Like, if there were more passions outside of politics, if more people were just like chasing what that ollie felt like on their skateboard, or chasing that pow turn, like chasing those like feelings more often, everyone would just be happier.
Think about
maybe.
the people. Okay, so people in war, like back to like Hitler, World War II. I mean, wars are still going on. It's a crazy place out there. But like, think about when you are behind this barricade getting bombarded with guns, and bombs are going off and you're with all your buddies, like you must be in flow state 24. You're like the amount of energy and focus and attention to detail. And I mean, in 1 second, it could be all over and you're like a Marine. I'm assuming that they're in flow state more than anybody.
Do you think it's flow state, or do you think it's more of like a
Stressful?
just on more of like not a biological, on an instinctual level? It's like more of like a survival state. Like, I guess it could be the same thing. Like, they're probably experiencing some level of flow because their survival instincts are kicking.
And exactly with being like a hunter. You know what I mean? Like if we were trying to like kill another thing,
and the
you would be
stakes
in
were
flow
high
state. Like a cheetah when it's hunting its prey is probably in flow state. It's
totally.
like it's aware of every footstep without it even knowing.
Yeah,
it's doing everything. It's kind of like when we go off of a cliff and you're like, oh, I'm gonna do a back 10 because I'm Rasma. I'm gonna go bigger than anybody. And you're going in and you're not really thinking of anything. You're just doing. But little do you know, there's like a little block in front of the jump that you have to avoid. There's a rut by Jody that spins way far left or right that could grab you.
Yeah. Do you think that like it's almost feels like when you're in those flow moments that you can do like way more problem solving than your brain can do when you're not in those moments? Like you try and problem solve
100%.
like just like chilling and someone throws a bunch of questions at you, or you're having a conversation and you're trying to like deal with it all at once. Like your brain only has so much bandwidth to process it. But when you're in those states of flow, your brain just figures out like 100 different problems in like a second as you're rolling into a jump or as you're on a handrail. Like, I don't know. There's just like something that happens that it's kind of hard to explain.
No, I agree. I think that when you are in flow state, you, instead of like, let's say whatever hypothetical number is, like you normally analyze everything at, let's just say a nice easy number at like 100 frames a second in your brain. In flow state, I feel like it's like 10,000.
Yeah, totally.
Have you ever been in a car accident? I was in one car accident where I rolled probably 3-4 times off of like a little cliff. Yeah. With Ashley Barker and Kevin Griffin a long time driving up to Prince George on a rail trip, like way back in the day.
You showed me the spot. We drove by it. Yeah. Like right there through that fence.
Yeah. It was insane. But I remember like it probably all happened in like 10 seconds, but it seemed like an hour. And I had enough time to like grab the pillow, put it over the window because I knew it was going to explode.
Oh my God.
Then the Thrasher textbook hit me in the face and all of our fresh coffee hit me in the face. And I remember being like, fuck, this other cup of coffee is going to hit. So I grabbed the cup of coffee. But it's like, it was insane that my mind could, normally 10 seconds is a blink of an eye. If you're just sitting there tying up your shoe, it's like boring. It just passes. But 10 seconds when you're either near death or you're so focused on something like flying off of a jump or trying to kickflip backtail this big hubba or drop in on Jaws or some crazy wave. Like, I feel like your state of mind or whatever happens in your brain, it releases something, whether it's dopamine or something like that, but it slows everything down.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of why I think this guy's doing the podcast, is he feels like all of the books that have been written on flow state so far have been written by like neurologists and scientists that might have a good understanding of what your brain's doing, but they haven't experienced it themselves enough to be talking about it. So, and he's not like trying to criticize these neurologists or these scientists or these authors. He just wanted to do it from the athlete's perspective, where we experience it a lot, but we don't really know how to articulate what's happening. And yeah, fuck, I don't know what it is, but anyone out there who's listening who has a passion, it doesn't necessarily need to be snowboarding or skating or a, in quotations, extreme sport, even though that term's fucking lame, but you know what I mean? Like something, I feel like an extreme sport just means like something where the stakes are a little higher if you fuck up, you know?
Other than like hockey and football where people just die every year.
Yeah, totally.
The more I watched football with my dad when I was at home, I was like, hey, what happened to all like that guy's quarterback? And like this, he's like, oh, that guy only made it a year. This guy was 6 months. That guy is like, their careers are so short-lived. Yeah. I mean, one weird knee ankle twist or anything like that, and you have a 280-pound dude tackling you. It's like your ligaments are gone.
Yeah. Do you ever think about like, I'm sure we talk about this all the time, like if you would have gone into another sport like that, like, yes, how much more money you would have made, but also that aspect of it, that it's like, maybe I could have made like so much more money if I did like 2 or 3 years as a pro hockey player, but it also could have been, you would not be doing it anymore if you had an injury. Like you would have gotten cut off the team, lost all your sponsors. Yeah, maybe you would have made like enough money to have a life savings. But I just feel like you said, so many of their careers end so much earlier because the stakes so high, the pay is so high.
I mean,
don't know.
I feel like your other sport that you would have focused on and tried to do if it wasn't for snowboarding would have been surfing.
Mine personally, for sure.
For sure.
Yeah, there wouldn't have been like a court. I don't, you know me, I don't watch any other sports. I don't watch arena sports. I don't know anything about them really.
Yeah.
So there definitely wouldn't have been another thing other than like probably
And
not
do you think,
skateboarding
I feel like
surfing.
surfing, you're obviously riding huge, big mountain now. You're hanging out with Travis Rice. You're in the Travis Rice, John Jackson kind of like level tier, I would say.
Thanks, man.
For sure. Without a doubt of going huge and not being afraid. I mean, it's crazy going out there with you sometimes, for sure.
That's cheers, buddy. That's a nice compliment.
Yeah. But I feel like if you were in surfing, it would have been the same thing. And I feel like, do you feel that the level of snowboarding you're riding right now, do you feel like if you were riding the same level in surfing, the consequence is the same? Or do you feel like it's less? But I feel like surfing, you have to, like your breath, you're going to be held under the water. And then snowboarding, you have like other variables. Do you feel like one is mellower than the other? Like, I feel like both of them are insane.
Okay. Maybe rephrase the question. Are you asking if I was like this level of
if you
pro
hypothetically
in surfing,
were
a pro
to
surfer?
attack your other like favorite sport,
Right.
surfing,
Yeah.
do you feel that it would have been like, because I guess what you're saying is that earlier, that if you were to do a sport that was really gnarly and you were out in like 2 years, or there was hockey or football or whatever. I feel like if you were surfing, I feel like surfing and skateboarding and snowboarding are all kind of at the same level. Like once you're a pro at it, you're pretty, how to manage risk and reward.
Yeah.
And it's not that crazy. And you're in control of all the variables, where like something like football, no one's running at you while you're riding the park and might tackle you. So there's so many variables that are out of your control in other sports.
Yeah, exactly. You hit the nail on the head with that last line. One of the things that I don't really love about team sports and sports like hockey and football per se is you aren't totally in charge of your destiny when it comes to like injury or something happening, because there's all these other players around you that could fuck everything up for you if they hit you wrong. It's like you have the ball and you're running and some asshole has an ego and maybe you fucking looked at him funny in the game prior and he clips you and slide tackles you and you blow your knee out and your ACL is done. I don't know. There's just all these other things that can happen to you that wouldn't be all your fault. The nice thing about surfing, skateboarding, and snowboarding is you're completely in charge of what you're doing. And yes, it's just like you and nature. It's like you and your elements, and your decisions affect you like way more direct. Basically, you just don't have to worry about somebody else's decisions as much as you do in those team sports.
Well, plot twist,
but
skateboarding, I feel like there's no variables other than maybe there being like a crack in the cement or whatever. But if you look at all those inconsistencies aren't going to change, other than maybe somebody driving or walking across like your landing zone. Snowboarding, it's like the other variables are like snow condition, weather, like is the landing firm or is there actual pow down there? This is my first hit on this huge jump. Is it kind of wind blown? Or judging by the snowball we threw off this takeoff that's sunk in the knuckle, is it actually soft down there, or is this going to be bulletproof? Or like surfing, I feel like maybe is a little bit closer to skateboarding, or maybe there's some variables like are there like ripples in the water and whales and stuff? Or
I'm like, I would be careful. Me personally, I would be careful to talk about skateboarding because I don't know that much about it. I don't follow it, so I don't want to say anything and make any assumptions about it. Where people are like, "Oh, it's not like that." Like, I feel like someone like. If like Cusick was sitting here, for instance, and I said something about skateboarding, it would probably be really easy for him to be like, no, it's not like that, dude. But so I won't say anything I don't know about skateboarding, but I do think snowboarding and surfing some people could argue like surfing is way safer because you're falling in water. I don't necessarily think it is once you get to that high level. I think certain aspects of it are lower impact and are a little safer than snowboarding. Snowboarding just beats up your body a little bit more. But when you get to that high level in surfing, there's a ton of shit that could happen, whether it's like the reef, drownings, getting pounded by the wave. And then there's all these little things that you do with your body while you're surfing, like tucking your knee into your board all weird when you're trying to like sneak into a barrel. Like if you fall in the barrel when your knee's all tucked in like that, like people blow their knees all the time doing that. Like I have a lot of surfer friends who have like, broke their ankles, blown their knees, trying airs, falling in the barrel. So I don't know. It's all relative. I think they're both dangerous. I don't know if one is necessarily more dangerous than the other. I just think there's elements that surfers don't have to think about that we do, and there's elements that we don't have to think about that they do. Like,
For sure.
you know, unless we're in an avalanche, our mountain's not moving, our mountain's not chasing us.
You know what? I'm saying it. Action sports, extreme sports, every sport you do is now extreme.
Extreme.
Period. I mean, how is hockey not extreme? Or like
Hockey's fucking
golf
gnarly,
doesn't
dude.
need to be extreme, but football.
I'm gonna be started on golf.
Like, I mean, Jesus, those things are insane. Even basketball, dude. Some of those knee injuries you're watching, you're like, oh, hot damn, that looks painful.
Is there a lot of shit in basketball?
Ankles and knees, dude.
Really?
Once you get up, I mean, I don't watch it that much, but
Yeah.
when I do see a bad one, because I watch Sportsnet like all the time when I'm watching hockey.
Yeah.
Go Jets, go!
Winnipeg
then
Jets,
yeah.
what up? I like the Jet sign, by the way. I noticed that. Winnipeg Jet Street on your deck.
Yeah, I got that for
Pretty tight.
Christmas.
Nice. From Dutch?
Yeah, who's your favorite hockey player on the Jets?
Crosby. I don't know. I have no idea. I couldn't name one player on the Jets.
It's all good.
Who's your favorite player on the Jets?
Oh, without a Scheifele. I mean, I like the whole team.
Yeah, but name a favorite player.
Dustin Bufflin, maybe. Just ever since
yeah.
he picked up those two homies and just kind of destroyed them in the boards. I was
Yeah,
like,
totally.
whoa, that was-
Bufflin's tight. Yeah,
I'll show you
We
the
had a good
video.
party night. Me and Dustin one time.
I think you and Dustin actually would get along really well. One of my buddies is pretty good friends with him, and I think that yeah, I think so. Or maybe you wouldn't. I don't know. Who knows? Who cares? Anyways, go Jets. So just to get on track with something I feel like we should touch base on. We have a movie premiere coming up.
Yeah.
The Manboys have made another movie. This is our
damn.
6th year. What's it called? Take us through it. What was a season like with the crew?
Season with the crew is awesome, as it always is with you guys.
Who's your least favorite and who's your favorite? Come on, we're all buds here. We can take it.
I would say my least favorite's probably Belzile. Just
Really?
kidding.
I was thinking it was going to be Ben.
Yeah, no, it's probably Ben. No, everyone's fucking awesome. We're very fortunate. We get to film with our best friends. I was fully joking, by the way. Belzile's one of my best friends. We're lucky. We have formed a production company where we all get to film together for the last 6 years, and that's pretty fucking awesome because I don't think a lot of people can say that. I'm sure a lot of people make friends along the way when they film for different things, but you know, we got to choose who we film for. But yeah, this year was not drastically different than previous years, other than the fact that we were dealing with a lot of wind, like a lot of shitty snow conditions. We had like a very small window of POW early season, and then pretty much for like 90% of the season, it was wind blown, -20, then it would get too hot and the snow would all melt, and then it would get super cold again, and then it would freeze. So it was actually, like, looking back, it was kind of a messed up year on snow conditions. So watching rough cuts of Umami, so our movie's called Umami this year. And if you Google Umami, it's the 5th flavor. It's like the 5th taste, unspoken taste.
It's Japanese for sure, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Japanese.
Rusty loves Japan.
Totally. Rusty picked the name, and he hit us all up, and no one was against it. I kind of didn't really get it at first, but
I don't get
it's
it,
kind of
but
dope. I think it's kind of funny.
When you're the guy alone in a place in Yuki on the island,
being creative
on the
and-
ocean, I mean, and he's doing all the editing, he can name it whatever he wants. Like, I'm not going to sit there and be like, you should do it. Like, I just shut up.
Yeah, totally. And like, it's weird, but like, what is a snowboard movie name anyways? Like, you could go with something like we call it Dropping In, or call it Dropping in 5. Our movie this year is called Dropping in 5.
Yeah.
Everyone knows that feeling, you know, when you're about to like drop in 5. Like, there's just like, what's a fucking name? Like,
Well, the
nobody really.
absinthe teaser, what did you think about that? The dialogue
Snow.
over the riding? That was pretty funny.
Yeah, it was. I didn't love it, but it's also like, I don't know. They're like, I was talking to Shane Charlebois and Hassanik about that. They told me that they were going to be experimenting with that. I think like we're biased because we are like so in it. We're so immersed in it. I don't want to use the word core, but like we're right there in it. We're making movies ourselves. So there's like not a huge amount of people in the world that are like obsessed with snowboarding as we are. So I think those people might not like something with that much dialogue and that much like voiceover, but maybe some people who don't get to experience that shit all the time will. So maybe some people will connect with that. Like, I saw a lot of comments on the teaser were really positive about that voiceover. Like I saw one dude's comment, he was like, "Oh, that gave me shivers." And then he like wrote this big thing about his first time snowboarding. It was like, I remember my first time, like blah, blah, blah. My buddy told me I should get off skis. He rented me a snowboard at such and such resort. Haven't looked back since. My kid snowboard. He like wrote this huge thing on the teaser. And I was like, oh, fuck, I got to click this guy's profile. So I clicked his profile and he was like, probably works in an office, like a guy in his 50s, a dad, like does not look like a snowboarder. But I think that's pretty amazing that snowboarding has touched his life and he's now sharing it with his kids. And I don't know. So maybe it's not very cool to us because we're like, we don't need a voiceover. But I don't know. That snowboarding's not just for us. Like snowboarding's for everyone.
Oh, that was sick. And think about if you're a Justin Hosnick.
Yeah.
You've made 488 videos. Basically,
I think it's 489
one of them
now,
is going to
actually.
have dialogue in it. I mean, eventually, even him in the editing room, he's like, how many rap songs and rock and roll songs and techno songs can I edit to before I go insane?
Totally. He's got, he has to,
He has
he's a
to
very
keep-
creative, interesting person. I got to hang with him a bit this spring in Alaska, and he needs to, he's been making them for so long that I think he's got to have the freedom to experiment and to do something different, because he's not going to be passionate to keep making movies if he does the same thing every year. And I don't know. I honestly don't think you can or should only please the core snowboard industry every single year. Like, I think you do need to release some stuff that like maybe has more of a mass appeal, and maybe some of the core snowboarders might think is cheesy. I kind of think you need both. I don't think you can like just do one. Like,
Yeah.
if only super core movies were coming out that like nobody else outside of the core industry like connected with or understood, like all those people that buy product would just stop being into snowboarding and they would start doing other shit. And then like all of the core snowboarders would be fucked and we'd have no industry.
It's true.
And I think
There's
a lot of people
two
forget
sides
that.
to
Like,
every coin. I mean, I gotta say, I love those like older Absinthe movies. I haven't seen this one yet. It could be the best one yet, but the dialogue wasn't really for me. But
Yeah,
I
no,
don't
totally.
even think it's for you. I think that
And I
you're
didn't
playing
like it
devil's
either.
advocate,
I am.
and I respect
Yeah.
where you came from, because I mean, like we said, Justin Hosnick's made 488 movies, and
Yeah.
the guy's probably going, he can't do it again.
I am totally playing devil's advocate with that, because like I said at the start of this, I didn't love the dialogue. All I'm saying is like, I think some people are down. So I think like, it's kind of just is what it is. Like it's,
So we did have a tough year.
yeah.
We had a tough year. How did your season go? Did you have a good year filming with the umami? Is that how
The
you say it?
umami. Yeah.
Umami?
Yeah. I feel like I look back at every season, and I know you do this as well, because we always talk about it. I am never 100% satisfied. And I think that goes hand in hand with being a snowboarder who films video parts, or just a snowboarder in general. Like, you're never going to be totally satisfied with it. And that's what gives you the perseverance to want to do it again the next year and do it better. But last year in particular, one frustration I had is I went into the season being like, I want to like not repeat as many tricks. Like, I wanted to like really change up some of the things. I had a couple new ones I wanted to try, and even just like same tricks with different grabs, which you know how it is. It totally changes the trick when you do a completely different grab. So yeah, I had all these things in my head and these like goals that I wanted to do. And then it just wasn't the snow year for that. Like, anytime we were actually like getting airborne or like hitting a jump, it was like, oh my God, don't fall. Like, this
Airborne. I
fucking
should have called it
hurts. Like,
fucking Airborne. That was
podcast.
sick. That was dope. Sorry
anytime
to
we
interrupt.
get airborne this year. Yeah, I mean, you know how it was. We were sessioning everything together, and it wasn't one of those years where you had a couple of jumps that you could really like open up on. Like, there was just pretty much everything that we hit, that we built. It was like, oh fuck, don't fall.
Yeah,
and so
it really was.
I was happy looking back at how weird the season was. I am happy with my season. Like, I'm happy with all the footage I have. I wrote a couple of new things, wrote a lot more lines this year. And I think we all did, because of the snow conditions. And yeah, I'm stoked, but
So you're
I'm
not-
always going to have things I pick apart about my footage.
For sure. I mean, without a doubt. But I would say, just from watching it firsthand, dealing with the conditions that we had and stuff, I mean, yeah, it's mind blowing how talented you are out there. You're getting more and more. I mean, I've been riding with you for 6 years now, and I would just you're the way you can look at terrain and know what works and what doesn't work, and know when to call it on stuff and when to go, and what you're capable of.
Yeah.
And when you are in those hairy situations, when you have to go into that flow state to make that calculation before something's too late, you always seem to make that. And it's really it's so fun to go out there with you because it's also you land most of the time, and if you're never like a hazard, you know, for how good and how big you go. There's not a lot of cases where I'm like me and Rusty and whoever Ejack and Matt are sitting in the landing and Bo or whoever else is out there that day.
You're like, oh
it's
God,
not like,
don't do this.
Rasman's going to try to back 7 off that. Well, maybe we should tell him about all these variables. It's like, he could try it.
Yeah.
Where like, maybe if I was up there, people would be like, Smalls can't swim.
Well, thank you again, man. That I appreciate that. It means a lot coming from you. I've noticed that with you a lot as well. And I think people are going to be stoked seeing Umami because all of the guys this year have a lot more free riding in it. And I think the Joey really came out this year. And I know that you love to pick apart your footage more than anyone else, but I'm really stoked on your shit this year as well. But I think like for me, I wasn't always like that. And like, you know, this probably from the first year you started filming with me to now, even that has been a huge gap. But I go back to before the Manboys started when I was trying to like make a name for myself in snowboarding. And I was definitely like a bit more of a hazard and a bit more just Sendy, more Kodak courage. But I think I've just gotten a lot better at combining my personality and like my body type, which like likes to go big and I really like to go fast. Combine that with being like logical and not stupid and still making like the right choices. A big part of my like progression and my like ability to maintain is knowing when to stop, which is what you said as well. Like sometimes I'll just be like, nope, this jump doesn't work for me.
You were really good at this year going out. And that's something like when you're in the backcountry, a lot of the viewers, I'm assuming, don't actually or haven't actually hit like a backcountry jump. You know, there maybe some of them from Quebec or Minnesota or Bear or whatever.
Yeah.
But like when you're hitting like a 50 or 60 foot backcountry jump that's kind of step downy and there's 8 bomb holes, like these holes in the landing. Like if you land in one of those, it's like concrete.
Totally. Yeah.
Like you get
really
rocked
hurt
if you land in one of those. And I was really, it was fun. Maybe fun's not the word. It was when you're out there, it's just like you make the right call and then it kind of rubs off on me because then I'm the one like typically like I don't know when to call it a lot of the time. And then I'm like, you know what, live to like ride another day.
Totally.
That line was terrible, but I actually think that it made me go through the year a lot more. It makes it more safe to be like, I've tried my chick a few times. The landing's done. Yeah. Like stop. Or we are riding a lot of natty stuff too. And with natty stuff, once the takeoff gets kind of weird, or there's a bunch of tracks, it doesn't look that good anyway. So it's easy to call it when you're riding natty stuff after there's like, you know, 3 tracks. Like maybe you can give it another 4th, but after that, it just kind of looks like shit anyway. And it's easy to be like, okay, I'm going to stop. And I've been loving riding natty stuff with our crew, and we've been doing so much more of it these days. And I think that a lot of us have been just hitting the jumps and the step downs for so long. It's been fun to watch everybody get pushed into this new direction of free riding. I don't know if you can call it like, oh, that's what the older generation does anyway. I mean, whether that's what older snowboarders are supposed to do or we just like riding powder anymore. I think it's just like a fun new way to learn how to, it's exciting for me. I was like almost burnt on just building cheese wedges out there.
Totally. I think it's like, I don't necessarily think that like snowboarders starting to ride more natural terrain like means like, oh, they're getting old, they're hitting less jumps. I think it just means like, you're getting more experienced and you're getting bored of just going out and building jumps. Like we all still have so much fun hitting jumps. Like I love hitting a jump with a nice landing and like trying new tricks. But as you like the years go by and you collect more and more knowledge about like snow safety and like, you know, what snow is going to be good, what aspects are going to be good today, what's going to be wind loaded, like, you know, how to navigate down a line with managing your slough and like not hitting that rock and you're hitting that thing natural, you like all that stuff. Like that's all only comes with time. Like you can't just explain that to the most talented 19-year-old snowboarder in the world and send him out there and he's going to be able to do it. Like, so I think the natural progression, and it tends to happen to riders in their late 20s and their early 30s, but that's because that's how long it takes to comfortably get there. And I think we're all like really starting to tap into that now.
It's fuck. It's dangerous out there, and you have to.
Fucking dangerous. It's real out there.
You brought up like avalanches there and kind of safety. Where do you get your knowledge from? Where do you continue to like? That seems to be an important part for us anyway. I think it's going to become more important as we know that this is kind of like this is our program. We like being out in the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe reaching out to Pat. Pat Moore puts on a program at Bald Face.
We should definitely all do that,
right?
Yeah, I've gone to it once, and then I was going to go to it the third year they did it, but I just was busy and didn't have the money at the time. But I think that course is great. I think we should all do that because it's an avalanche course that, is like not beginner avalanche course, but it's not like it's basically AST 1 knowledge, but it's like geared more towards the situations that we will be in as pro athletes. So I think it's something we should definitely all do.
And do you know much about the program? So did Pat like have this idea like, hey, snowboarders need to know a bit more about avalanche awareness? Like I'm going to put this program together.
I'd be lying if I said I knew exactly how it started, but I'm pretty sure it was Pat and Jeff Pensiero, who is the owner and founder of Bald Face. They were talking about doing an avalanche course like for pro snowboarders and for like friends of Pat and people in the industry and, cinematographers and photographers and stuff like that. I think they just wanted to give them like a fun week to come their early season before their normal operations started, but also make it like a legit avalanche course where they're sharing all of this important safety and survival knowledge with all of these like young pro snowboarders, young and old pro snowboarders that are out in the backcountry all the time. And like we all know how it feels to hear about a peer or even like a friend of a friend that has died in something like that. And it's like, it sucks. And I don't know. I just think however it came to fruition, I don't know exactly the story, but I think it's like pretty fucking dope that they're doing it because it's raising more awareness for avalanche safety. And they've like found a cool niche to make it kind of cool. And now it's this cool event that like people really want to get into. Like you hear other pro snowboarders talking about it, like, I got to get to Pat's like Avi course. Like, are you going? Like, I don't know if it's full yet. Like I got to hit up Pat. And anyways, whatever they're doing and however they did it, it's rad. I think all of us should go this year. I want to try and be back from Hawaiian time where we can all go. But yeah, Pensiero gives you like a really good price, and it's
100%
avalanche knowledge, bro.
Thank you so much for putting that program on. I am going to reach out to you. Hopefully you let me join the club this year. But either way, like Pat's doing a lot of cool things. He does that. He puts that methodology or whatever.
Ass wax.
I don't think that's around anymore, but
what? No more ass wax, Pat?
Yeah, I don't think ass wax is around anymore, but he does put on like a few, he has his event. He's putting on that bald face thing. He's really giving back. I mean, Pat lives and breathes snowboarding, I'm pretty sure. And do you remember his part in Video Gangs? I think that was maybe his first kind of part. And it's just like in the young blood section with like Travis Kennedy and JP Tomach and stuff like that or whatever.
Totally.
That part was so sick. That was the first time I saw Pat and I was like, damn. And he's still giving back to the community. So big shout outs to Pat for doing that.
Yeah, Pat, you're dope. So are you, Jeff Pensiero.
Yeah, I haven't met Jeff, but I'm going to go with, way to go, Jeff.
You guys will get along. I feel like your personalities, you guys will click.
Heck yeah, Jeff, way to go. Can't wait to meet you. So
Jeff, invite Jody to Bald Face, please.
Yeah, invite me to Bald Face. So out of curiosity, because I actually don't feel like I even know, who are some of the big dudes that really inspired you? Not maybe before you moved to Whistler. So like the younger phase, like who are the dudes you were into? Was it?
Before I moved to Whistler, so like, I moved to Whistler right after high school. So like high school years, it was like the Wildcats. So it was like Devin Walsh, Chris Duffy, Browner, like the Wildcats crew was a big one for me. And that was, it just felt close to home. It was like, there was the Mac Dog movies that I was watching. And obviously like True Life was one of my favorite movies and all those guys, like I cared about all those pros, but then there was this like Wildcats group that were, in my eyes, better, but because they were, I don't know if that was real at the time or because they're Canadian, but it just felt like close to home and achievable. And they were like partying and just living in Whistler. And I don't know, just being like, when you're a 15-year-old impressionable kid, like everything that they were doing was just like so dope to me. So those guys, I'd say, were the first heavy influences. And then like, as the years went on, then I started to be more influenced with like specific riders. Like then it kind of became like DCP, Nicholas Mueller, Travis Rice obviously was a big one for me. Devin Walsh always, like from the start till now, has always been like a huge influence and someone that I've always loved to watch snowboard.
Likewise.
Yeah. And then I had a short phase where it was, not even a short phase, but like pretty much while he was a pro snowboarder, I was a huge fan of Matt Beermore because he had this like kind of raw, like loose, lanky style, like strong guy style. Like maybe he didn't have the most like finesse, and he didn't look like Devin, but I just kind of felt like I could relate to him a bit more. I was like, oh, like I kind of look like that. So
I always thought I never knew Matt Beardmore really, but when he put out a part, I was always like, this guy is insane.
Like he was going too,
huge
and doing like one thing that like he did back then, I would say probably even better than I do now, is really tough trick selection. Like if you watch an old Beardmore part, like he made sure he had like a switchback 7 in there. He made sure he had like cab 3s in there and like back 1s. Like he was really like trying to cross the hard tricks off his list when he filmed the video part. And I'm a bit biased because I moved into the same house that he was living in and we became friends. So obviously like my like me being a fan of Beardmore grew. Like everyone's got like all of us have a story of someone that we like kind of apprenticed under, I guess you could say. But
totally.
Yeah. Those names were, I'd say, I feel like I've named them all. Those guys were all like super influential to me.
Because you grew up in Vancouver, so your local mountain would have been Grouse?
Did you? It was actually Cypress. And so the only reason I wasn't like up at Seymour riding the park, because that was the only mountain at the time with like a good park. Cypress didn't have a park. It was non-existent at the time. Grouse had a little one. I just rode Cypress because that's where my dad rode. I didn't have like a bunch of friends in high school that rode. I had like 2 friends and they just didn't go snowboarding that much. Whereas my dad was frothing to go like after work and after school every night. So just by default, like Cypress was my local resort.
And not only is your dad like a boarder, like your dad's a shred. Like he's been going to the Baker Bank since forever. Like he's rode with Tino's Terrier.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like
he gave Terrier, after Terrier won the Bank Slalom one year, but didn't know he won it yet because he had just finished his finals run and was like waiting to see his time, and they didn't put his time up there. And he's looking around and he's like, "Hey, is anybody going to the airport?" Like we're at Baker in Washington in like a fucking glacier. And my dad happened to be beside him and he's like, "Terry, like YVR, Vancouver Airport?" And he's like, "Yeah, I have a flight in 4 hours." In 4 hours, Terry had a flight out of YVR and my dad drove him to YVR. But anyways, my dad's like snowboarded with like Craig Kelly and Noah Salzek and like Damian Sanders, all those OGs. But so he's got some roots in the sport. He's got some roots. Yeah.
I've heard him spill some beans that are like, not like the Devin, and it's like like that whole like Damian Sanders, like Noah. Like I've hung out with your dad obviously before, and it's funny to see like he's like, I'll be like, "Oh, that guy was sick." You're like, "Oh no, that guy was a kook." Like he would always be at the contest wearing that guy he wasn't cool at all. Like it was just really funny to hear like like a dad say like about what was tight back then, but it's like that generation that's a bit too far away from me to even like grasp. Like when I watch TB2 and TB1, the videos before that, I'm like, holy shit.
Dude, yeah, me too. Like I think me and you were on a similar page as this. Is like I didn't even really start watching movies until I was like 15 years old. It wasn't like I was watching them super young. So that era, as far as the snowboard history aspect of it, is like I learned a bit about it in my adult years, but I don't know that much about it. So I'm just like, I just know the names and I know they were legends and I know they paved the sport for us. But
13 to, I would say 12 to 14, I was like fully clueless. And then my friends from the city, when I had met, the whole like city crew came down and they were all really
like which friends? Like
so people Jeeves and Griffin and my other friend Chris and Tyler Beckel and stuff. They all Chris Aniak, yeah.
I met that dude. He's awesome.
Yeah, he's a G. So those dudes were all watching, like they've been snowboarding way longer than me. They've been watching all the old videos. And so they were like, these are the dudes that like, these are the guys that were like dope. Yeah. And so like, I was like, okay, you know, and it's the same, like you probably moved to Whistler, you know, you're riding at Cypress all the time. And the only thing like you're grabbing some mags and stuff. And then you see that like Devin's cruising. You're like, whoa, pros ride around the Vancouver area. Those are my boys. Then you move to Whistler and move in with Beardmore. Yeah. And he's like Narcor and everything like that. So like those are your boys.
Yeah.
Or and like I think mine was a little bit dictated like a little differently. Like I Jeeves. And so it's just like Forum. Yeah. And then I had Chris be like, you know, Kid Snow, like Kingpin movies, like, you know, that, and so like I was like, okay, that's it. So I wasn't even like the hugest fan of the Wildcats growing up because I just didn't know. Yeah. And then it was until I really became friends with Jeeves when Jeeves was like, he didn't actually, but basically was like slapped me back and forth across the face a few times, basically with like his, like, what do you mean the Wildcats aren't your
so
favorite?
mad.
And then I of course started watching them all, and my best friend Jesse Walker really started picking up all the movies at that point, and that's when I had got first showed the Wildcats, and I was like, obviously, like you said, you're 15. These dudes are partying. They're rapping in their own movies.
Yeah,
like the best
like girls
soundtracks,
everywhere,
like
and
techno music to Bales. Like they just had so much personality. I mean, a lot of the old movies had a lot of personality in them, which was
for sure.
sick.
A lot of them did, but like something about there was like that rock star shit for a while. Like in the early 2000s was like all the Mac Dog movies. They kind of really like, with the intros and everything, really portrayed that like snowboard rock star life. And
JP Walker.
Yeah. And like, not for lack of like, it was real. Like there was so much money. Like I listened to Kearns's podcast with JP Walker, and it's pretty crazy to hear some numbers on the money they were making. Like you can make fun of that rock star shit, but like that shit was real. Like those guys were making money and they were like living it. And
yeah. They're so like Mark McMorris. There was like tons of Mark McMorrises walking around.
Mark McMorris level money. So yeah, I don't know. The Wildcats did it in a way where it was like the rock star level, but they also did it. It seemed like they did it in a more relatable way, where there was all this like bro cam party footage of like in a shitty house in Whistler, and somebody's like breaking a table and being like, there was all this stuff that seemed like a bit more relatable, less out of reach. It's like, oh yeah, we can be that. Like that's like, but yeah, I don't know. At the same time, when you're a kid or you're a young teenager, you are so much just a product of your environment. Like you are so influential, and you're going to be influenced by the people around you. You're going to be influenced by just what is around you and what you see. So I feel like I could go any direction. Like in another world or in another dimension, who knows, maybe I would be a rail rider, and I'd be telling you that my favorite boarder was like JP Walker, and
But isn't that insane that like, if you take snowboarding out of the equation, the people you look up to right now in your life, like the people you look up to that you're inspired by, they literally are dictating your future.
Yeah.
Because like all I wanted to do and all I liked when I was a kid was snowboarding. I liked these dudes, and I kind of became a piece of all those dudes. You know, I loved Danny Cass, but I loved Simone Chamberlain, and like, you know, Simone was like, you know, really nice. Danny was crazy, and Mark Frank was a gangster, and Devin had smooth style. I just took pieces of these people.
Yeah. And
I was so impressionable, and I was from the middle of nowhere, and I was like, I'm just a piece of them now, like a little bit. You know what I mean?
No, for sure.
And just
I think I think as far as like, let's just say snowboarding, to keep it simple, for your snowboard development, like as whether it's a pro or just the average snowboarder you are in your 30s, like you are a product of the people you look up to when you're most into snowboarding. But then more so than that, you're a product of who you're around. You're a product of your environment. Like you've given me like so many compliments about like my snowboarding today, like what it is now. But like, I am such a product of the riders that I've been around. Like, yeah, I'm a product of the boarders I looked up to, but I'm a real product of like all of you guys and like the people that I've rode with over the years. Like, and then like riding with Travis and riding with like, you know, different Euro riders around the world. Back when I used to film for Alterna, like I had the opportunity to ride with a lot of like international riders, and you just kind of like absorb different people's vibe that you're down with. And then you learn from different people's mistakes. You're like, I kind of don't like that when that person does that. So like, I'm going to really be conscious to not do that. Or like, I don't like when that person, you know, I like when this person does this. You kind of just like try and combine everything in your environment into which formulates what you are. But like,
it's crazy because it actually like shapes you as a person. So like you could listen to this and you don't even have to snowboard, and you could be going to work every day and you're hanging out with Bob, Jeff, and Tom, and that's your crew, and you hang out with all the time, and all they do is watch football, and they smoke the bong, and they order Domino's, and that's what you're going to be doing.
Yeah. Well, I think that's like no one is like no one is like a true innovator of something. I feel like everyone has drawn some inspiration where there's some form of like imitation there. And that's not a bad thing. Like anything creative has like a fundamental inspiration level that came from something. Like, you know, even Zeppelin, like there's so many Zeppelin songs that are copies of like symphony songs from like the 40s.
Mozart,
Totally. And like, that's okay. That's totally fine. And,
well, think about if you were Beethoven and Mozart and you were like, I'm actually the first.
Yeah. Like if you're actually the first and you're not getting any money
like,
from that.
That's where like Devin and stuff like that.
That's how big those guys were in the 70s? Oh my God.
Devin and all those dudes, or even before them, like you were saying, Damien and stuff like that, and Noah, and, you know, Chris Roach and stuff, those
Yeah.
dudes literally not knowing what was even possible.
Yeah.
And like they would come home and be like, I bonked a log today and 180'd out.
Totally.
And I don't think anyone's ever done that before.
Yeah, no, that must have been in itself a fucking crazy feeling, because like that first era of snowboarders, everything was new. Like everything they were doing was like there was no internet to go. Like now we can go watch videos of people doing crazy shit and be like, oh wow, that's possible. And then so you know it's possible, you know it can be done, and you can like try and make it happen. For those guys, everything was new. But kind of tapping back into what I was saying, those guys were all drawing some of their inspiration and some of their style from skateboarding and surfing. So it's like, yeah, it was all new, but on some level, they were taking these things from these other sideways standing things that they were into. You know, tons of new shit as well, but I just feel like there was a lot of
there was
skateboard and surf inspiration.
piece.
Like I want to turn
For
like
sure.
this, or I want to like tap that log, like.
Yeah, because I guess snowboarding would have been like this. Like when did the surfing boom? Like the 50s, like first, like or the 40s.
Yeah, I think actually like 50s or 60s is when it like in quotes.
I know there's
boomed.
photos of like surfers in like 1910 in Hawaii and stuff like that. You know,
surfing
but
on
like the
trees.
surf culture and stuff.
The surf
would have
culture
been,
in the 60s really started to grow.
which shaped skateboarding and snowboarding. So
Yeah.
for you, original surf bros that I've never met, thank you, because I mean, till this day. They're skateboarding, snowboarding, surfing. I love all of them. I love watching all of them. I love like the culture behind them all.
Yeah.
Like I really do. Like I'm a snowboarder. That's what I picked. It makes sense. I live in Canada. But skateboarding, snow and surfing, those motherfuckers don't got pow. They lose every time to me when someone's like, no, it's better. It's like, have you ever strapped in on a snowboard that was nice and wide and you're on this steep pitch and nothing in front of you but powder?
There's no
and your
friction
buddies,
when you ride powder. That's the cool thing. It's like surfing is amazing and it's one of my favorite things in this world, but surfing still has this like feeling of friction between the board and the water. When you're riding like cold powder, it's frictionless.
deep and steep. It's like,
not to talk about like hydrofoiling again, but I'm going to do it. One of the enticing
dude, it's
things
your
to me
podcast.
about hydrofoiling is like when where it's different than surfing is because the foil like slices through the water. There's this frictionless feeling. You don't maneuver it like you do a snowboard. Like you don't ride it like you would in powder, but the feeling when you're just going straight feels like pow because there's no friction. It's just like, yeah. Anyways,
that's amazing.
Powder's the best. I'd rather ride a perfect pow run at Baldface than I would go hydrofoiling though. Like that's
Did you
still
see
better.
that young kid's back 18,000 or
Yeah, New
not
Zealand the other day.
1800?
1800.
Do you feel like people should continue to spin over the 1800 mark? When should we have stopped?
A wise man once said, after 360, you're just repeating yourself.
Oh, who said that?
I saw on that exact post, Shane Charlebois from Absinthe, the guy who edits the Absinthe movies now. I saw him comment on that post like today, actually.
Oh my God.
It was like, you know, how Instagram like chooses the comments you see. And so like the first comment I saw was him and it was like, after 360, you're just repeating yourself. And I thought it was so awesome.
Oh,
I mean, I don't know, dude. Like I used to be more of a hater about things that like I didn't do. And like pretty much like when I was, you know, we're always learning, we're always growing in maturity, but definitely like 5-6 years ago, I was more immature about that. And if I wasn't into it, I didn't think it was that sick. But now I think it's all snowboarding. And if people want to do that, if like people want to incorporate their gymnastics, spinning top skills and see if they can outspin each other, like sure, whatever. I guess it's all still snowboarding. But for me personally, that doesn't do anything for me. I think the back seven Indy that Belziel did on that step down in Brandywine this year is way fucking sicker than that 1800 in New Zealand. But that's just me. I don't think that kid's lame for trying it. Like good for him. That was fucking crazy. I'll never be able to do that. There's no way.
I couldn't have said it any better. I feel like I have so much. There's a level of like respect and like you do your like kind of like the intro to Lucas Huffman's part. JP has the intro like I got nothing but love for you, man. Do your thing, homeboy.
Yeah. That was sick.
JP does an intro for Lucas Huffman and Shakedown and has this like epic little intro. But
It's
anyways,
so good.
It's so relatable to like I'm not mad at any of those dudes. I got nothing but love for you. You do your thing. But it's like I honestly could watch like someone like Mickle do a tail grab on a bump and like tweak his nose all down and be like way like that do so much for my soul. Or see like
Yeah.
You know, Tommy Gesme doing like a front blunt down like a kink, and he's all leaned into it, and I'm like, like, fuck, that's so sick.
Totally.
Like,
and it touches you in a way, like it connects with you. Cause I'm glad you mentioned the Tommy Gesme trick. Cause for me, because I don't have any like rail riding experience, or it's just my path didn't go that way. That Tommy Gesme clip won't do anything for me. I have so much respect that he can do it, and I see it and I'm like, well, that's crazy, but I don't personally get it. I don't think it's lame. I just don't get it. But I also think there's like, that kind of brings me to something I want to talk about, is like, I think if you're getting paid to snowboard or getting paid to do anything professionally, I do think there has to be like a level of innovation and a level of like peak performance, or like, you know, pushing it, or whatever it may be. I don't know the exact vocabulary I'm looking for, but you can't just like be just chill all the time, because then how different are you than just like an Instagram influencer? Like, what separates a pro athlete from someone who's not getting paid to be a pro athlete and who just does it for fun is the level of expertise and the level of doing something that people can look up to and be like, wow, that was incredible. I can't believe that that's the level that snowboarding's at right now. And I'm not saying that needs to be an 1800. I'm saying it could be a Mickle method on like a friggin' 90-foot hip, or it could be, you know, a Belziel back 10 on, you know, it just like,
I think there
has to be like a standard still to make it, to be a professional snowboarder. Otherwise, like, step aside. Like, there's a lot of people that are better than you.
I like that.
Maybe I should step aside. I don't know.
No, you don't need to step aside at all, dude. You're good. I think that there needs to be, like, when I watch someone's video part, I've never really cared if the person was like going the biggest or whatever, but you need to mix so many elements for it to be sick. So like, if there wasn't a really gnarly snowboarder, I would really enjoy someone's part if they were at least creative and go like, okay, like not so much anymore, but like, you know, they'd go to a park and hit like picnic tables, and like they would put a certain amount of effort into filming. And there was still a level of quality of the clip and how it was filmed and the video. And they would, you know, then you would see them not only go from the picnic bench, but you'd see that they went to Japan. And when they got to Japan, you would see them find like a creative thing to do a hand plant on. And you know, they're putting effort into it. And it's a hand plant that's really technical and stuff like that. And something that, or it's done with such good style that you can just enjoy. But like the whole, like, you know, do everything in your backyard, like never like go out of that realm. I don't know if I like have that much. It doesn't like do it for me.
Yeah, I don't really get it either.
I like
feel
when
like
people go out of their zone. Like Lewif. Like, imagine Lewif never went to Japan and filmed all those creative parts, and he just stayed in Montreal forever and filmed. Like, he is good. It would be amazing.
I think like that's actually probably a good direction to go with like the kind of topic we're on right now, is like, so we'll take like rail parts, something that I don't have a huge understanding about. I don't even know the names of a lot of tricks. I don't really know what's happening. I don't know where the level is. I watch a lot of snowboarding, and so I enjoy it. But for me, because I don't have an understanding of the tricks and the scene as much, there might be people out there, and I don't want to say like use Quebecers, but I feel like there's a lot of riders from Quebec right now that are like, and this comes up on your podcast a lot, they're building big wedges in the streets and using winches and doing all this crazy shit. Like, me, without having any awareness of rail riding, I don't think that's as cool as like what Lewif's doing or what Cusick's doing. Like, I watch a Lewif part or a Cusick part, and even though I'm not in that scene, I can recognize that there's something to the filmmaking, there's something to the style, there's something to the way that they're doing their tricks and the way that they're like selecting their spots that like touches me, even though I don't ride rails. And I'm like, oh, that, I don't know what it is. I can't articulate what it is about this video part, but that connected with me. That looked dope. That is the way it should look.
It's exactly what you said about Matt Beardemore. Like, you're like, Matt Beardemore, you know, he had the switchback 7, he had the cab 3, he had the back 180. Yeah. And it's like, you might not really know much about rail riding, but you can still like Jake rides regular. If he's doing a switchback lip and a down rail, you go, you're like, hot damn.
I know enough. I know snowboarding, so I can be like, hey, that was switch, that was a cab 2, but
exactly. But like, you just have that level of appreciation for, I just have appreciation for someone who's out there grinding, and it's like, looks like they put amount of effort into it.
Yeah.
Like, when it looks like something that's lazy, and it's like, I used to like, I don't know, like Matty Ryan's video parts, but it looked like he was out there all year grinding, like trying to film clips. He was never the best, but it was like, you could tell he was out there working for it.
Yeah.
Like when it comes to like the social media
putting
thing,
effort
like
in.
I'm not really gonna ride that much. I'm just gonna like chill, and if the day's perfect, I'll film. It's like that's bullshit. Like then let some other kid that's hungry,
Yeah,
and like
step
capable, like
aside.
someone like Adam Franks, who's putting every dollar he has into filming a video part
and
like
putting it on the line.
give it to him.
Yeah, and that's another thing I actually want to talk about on this podcast is I feel like there's this trend right now where there's a lot of riders who maybe feel like you don't need to be like, fuck, I hate some of the terminology that just has been like set as the standard for these things, but I hate saying push it, but there's a lot of riders that feel like you don't need to push it or like put it on the line to be at that level, that you can kind of just like chill and like, you know, go film a couple of cool like cripplers on the resort. And I just feel like there's this like movement right now in snowboarding that I don't really understand. Like maybe I'm just getting old and I don't get it. But for me, the era that I grew up watching and what I draw all my inspiration from is it's like there was like a standard. There was a level of like professionalism in the tricks that you were doing and the way that you did them and the size. And you don't always have to do it like that. Like you can go ride with your friends and have fun. But when it comes to filming a video part that people are like taking the time out of their day to watch, and I mean, used to be
Or
buy
potentially
movie
buy.
or potentially buy, like there should be a level of professionalism. So I don't know, like where's the separation? What makes you a pro snowboarder
I like
if you're
that you said
literally
you
just doing what everyone else, like there's so many good riders around the world that are in school and work normal jobs that, you know, I don't know what they're thinking, but maybe for them, they're like, why is this the way it's going now? Like I could do that. Why am I not getting paid to do that? Like that looks super fun. And his style's probably way better than mine will ever be, but like, he's not really doing that much. So I don't know, maybe I just don't get it, but I don't really understand that trend right now.
I mean,
I
you
still think
grew
people
up-
need to do.
Think about you listed off the group of people that inspired you.
Yeah.
And you listed off Devin, DCP, Nicholas,
Mhm.
and it's like those people were at the forefront of this is another word I don't like it, of like innovation
Yeah.
in snowboarding.
You don't
So
like
when
the
they
word
would put
innovation?
out a part, whether it was like the method was the biggest,
Yeah.
it was on something new and creative that you would still appreciate. Like,
Yeah.
well, where did you find that bump to do that method?
Totally.
Because then it doesn't matter, but you have a level of appreciation for it. But if you're going to the same spots that have been hit forever,
Mhm.
and you want to film a full part at Mount Baker, I mean, which would actually maybe be interesting almost now because Mount Baker has so much good
historical.
terrain. But
And it has so many historical spots that
Yeah.
might be actually kind of a cool project.
yeah, you know what? I think that's my project next year. Don't take that idea, but but yeah.
Cut, take that out. Copyright.
No, totally. But let's dive into the person who's at the forefront of pushing it and has been for years, Travis Rice. Like,
Yeah.
what's it like filming with him? Yeah, dive into that a little.
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk about Travis in a second, but one person I did want to mention who was in my head when we started talking about this conversation is DCP. So David's been someone that he was one of the guys that was an earlier inspiration for me as well, like in the Absinthe movies and the Mac Dog movies, and up until like, you know, like up until even now, like he's chilled out now. He's got kids, he's got a family, like he's got a busy life, he's got other shit, but for so many years he was still. There was just this level that like he wouldn't put out a shot of him if it wasn't like above that level. Like there was like a standard that had been set. Devin was the same thing. And then we get in the topic of Travis, and I honestly think, and everyone's got their own opinion, and I'm not saying this is fact. This is just my personal opinion. He's one of the best snowboarders in the world, and he like hands down is.
Nobody is going to argue that.
Yeah, and
You can't. I would say that Travis Rice is the best snowboarder in the world to ever exist. If you
there
watch
would be
all
a lot
of his
of
video
people that
parts,
would argue that. I bet you a lot of people would be like play devil's advocate and be like, no, it's this. I don't know.
who could you say? I mean, not taking out. If we just take out jibbing, just like delete. Like, I love that shit. But like snowboarding on a mountain, Travis Rice is by far the best snowboarder to ever do it.
Yeah, I mean,
there's
I
been
think
better
so.
video parts. There's been people I relate to and like more.
Yeah.
Style wise, maybe like Mark Frank or whatever like that for me. But Travis Rice, I mean, if you put his video parts together, there's no one who's achieved that much airtime. And it's
it's
not
crazy.
just hitting big cheese wedge. You can't just be like, oh, cheese wedge guy. It's like pillow lines, natty drops, technical.
Dude.
Like he's done first to set. He's done everything.
Yeah, and the way getting to know him over the last couple of years has been really interesting because we've gotten like went from like not knowing him at all and him just being one of these heroes of mine to like becoming a pretty good friend. And now like I know his personality really well and I actually like him more. And I think a lot of people, if like you're a fan of Travis Rice already, he's got the type of personality that you'll be a bigger fan of him when you get to know him. And I think that's like pretty
That's
dope.
admirable.
That's a really rad quality. I actually think he's been in some of those Brain Farm movies. I think he was kind of like misinterpreted in a lot of them. Like those movies were Kurt Morgan's movies and they were Rebels movies. They weren't, you know, on a fundamental level, they weren't 100% Travis's. So like creative control, direction, dialogue, like wasn't all Travis. Anyways, going a bit off track there, but he's got this like mental ability to like pick apart a long run or a long pillow line or something he's doing. And like, I'm not even talking about jumps right now. I'm just talking about all the mental like GoPro shit that he's been posting recently and the stuff he did in depth perception and all that. The way he can like navigate down something and remember every single turn and every single thing he's doing, like it's insane. It's like savant shit, you know, like, and so I have so much respect for that. And that
Everybody who's been out in the mountains, I wouldn't say that there's any snowboarder who would argue that Travis Rice is the best snowboarder that's been out in the mountains at like a respectable amount of time. That's like, even if you're a photographer or a filmer and you're somebody who's like been out there and you've looked at the bumps and how difficult it is to read terrain and to like surf down, pump, method, pump, like keep your speed up, watch your slough, don't blind yourself. Yeah. You're going switch, make sure you, and then load up on your back tail. When do you pop? You pop here, land. Like he links stuff together in a way that like I'm like, I don't even understand it. It's just hurts my head because I've gone out sledding so many times, tried to be like, okay, like I'm going to indie off this and then I'm going to slash and then I'm going to slash. I'm going to try a back five off this. And if I land switch, I'm going to do a half cab. And it's like, and indie, white room myself and then stopped in the middle of the line.
Yeah. Like it's for people listening, like if you're dissecting a line, like if you've never done this before and you just kind of want some like context to it, if you're trying to ride a line, like free ride down something, generally you like look at it from the bottom or, you know, or above. If you are fortunate enough to have a heli, you take some photos and you have to plan your line. You don't just like open up and start riding down it and see what happens. Cause there's all these hazards. Like there's slough. You don't want to white room yourself. There's like certain areas that are wind loaded that you don't want to go there because you could set off an avalanche. Like, okay, when you cross there, be light on your feet. Okay. Like left turn at the rock. Like you basically plan, I would say about 90% of the decisions, and for the line to be successful, at least 80% of those decisions have to go according to plan. So we usually pick, you know, for us, as the manboys, we're getting more and more into free riding and trying to do more of that. I would say we're doing these like shorter pitch free ride runs where we're making like, you know, 5 or 6, maybe sometimes up to 10 critical decisions. The shit Rice is doing, he's going down these psycho runs where there's like 30 to 40 decisions that he has to memorize, like to the T, like every turn. It's like, okay, like pump, like left turn here. Okay, right turn at the big pillowy tree. Okay, like ollie off of that one, tail tap the pillow. If that goes all good, like duck under that rock over there. Like, and there's like 30 or 40 of those in some of the runs he's doing. And I have so much respect for that because I just don't understand it. Like I was even asking him about it on this recent trip to Tofino, and like, I don't even think he really had a way to articulate or to explain it because that's just the skill level he's at. It's like having any master of something tell them, how are you a master at this? Like, how, you know?
I mean, the cool thing is that him every once in a while hanging out with you without you knowing, it's a little bit like an apprenticeship. Like you probably the first time you went to Alaska, I mean, you're already amazing out there and safe. And I mean, I loved going out there with you, Belzil and Rusty at the beginning of the Manboys because you guys really, I mean, I was the new guy on the sled and stuff like that. And I already felt like you guys were safe and aware and stuff like that and already kind of knew how to build stuff. And then you take everything you can get from Rusty. You take everything you can get from Matt and you deal with my shitty jokes and me being stuck everywhere. But then you take all that and as a group collectively, I feel like we're all kind of at the same level, but there's only so much more we can all learn from each other. And then when you get out of your bubble and you go out with someone like Travis, it's like you're absorbing all these new, like important key things that myself or Matt or Rusty could never teach you because I mean, you're hanging out with the Grand Master, like Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
And it's like just being in his presence and him analyzing a line. And you're like, well, how do you look at that? And he's like, oh, I look at it like this. And you're like, I never really thought. Didn't you say that he looks like left to right, not up to down? Was that you?
That was actually Mark explaining how Mikkel looks at a line, which I thought was really cool. But Trav does that too. And I think that's just something that a lot of really experienced free riders and line riders do, is instead of looking, when you're looking at a line or looking at a face, instead of just trying to find your path down that face directly fall line, you don't always have to find your path down at fall line. Sometimes you can find your path down at diagonally. And then sometimes a diagonal route down that face might be even better, because you'll be avoiding your slough the whole time. You'll be sending your slough fall line, and you keep on traveling either left or right, and you're getting away from it.
I feel like Nicholas does that a lot.
Nicholas is the king of doing that. If you, with what I just said, if you like take that and you go and watch like any Nicholas part where he's free riding, watch how he gets down something. Like he's very rarely just going fall line. Like he's like zigzagging all over the place, and then he'll like carve back and like ollie over his slough while it's the slough's water falling. Like it's pretty insane.
Like he is.
Dude, he's something else.
He is something else. Like
it was so cool to ride with him in Alaska this year, because him and Travis have like polar opposite personalities, but they're both like fucking goats. Like they're both such legends. And it's really interesting. Like Nicholas is like super calm and zen, and he moves really slowly. Like I would say my personality is more similar to Travis. We're more like a bit more hyper and a bit more high energy. And Nico's just like calm, and he's at the top of the line. He's climbing around. He's like looking down this chute, looking over there, and like just taking his time. And then he drops in and he just does like exactly what he says he was going to do so perfectly. And
he might be my favorite. He's my favorite, like video part, like filming, like he's inspired me so much. It's insane. I feel like every snowboarder's favorite, or at least every snowboarder's top 5, Nicholas is probably in it.
Totally.
And then you brought up Mikkel there, and I mean Mikkel's probably up there too. I mean, holy shit, those guys
Mikkel
look
is the
so
man.
good.
Big fan of Mikkel.
Yeah.
His like tall boy, lanky stuff. I feel like Mikkel's like, I don't want to like compare him too much, because he's definitely his own thing, but he's like this combination of like a Nicholas and a Devin mixed with like an extra
DCP
foot and a half
and
of
like,
blank.
yeah.
He's so sick.
Yeah. He's got like 3 or 4 elements of like the best snowboarder smashed into one.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's put out some video parts that are very enjoyable to watch.
You know, what's one thing, since we're kind of on this tangent of just like talking about these other epic influential riders, one thing that the listeners might be interested to hear about Travis is, like, despite all of these like amazing aspects to his skill level and his like ability to dissect snowboarding, he's like very human. Like when I first was riding with him and first hitting jumps with him, like he asks all the same questions that we would ask. Like there's all those same hazards. Like if he lost the Rosham and he's about to go first, he's like, oh, like how far do you think I can go left? Like, do you think I can spin over there? Like, is that rock close? Like all those same questions that we would be thinking about, like they're all there for him. Like he's a real person as well. And, he falls, which is like, was kind of nice to see, as crazy as that sounds. It's like, oh yeah, he's still human. Like he's still got those same concerns.
Yeah. He's almost human.
Almost. Yeah. Close to human.
Which is good to know.
Let's circle back to Manboys premiere, because we kind of got on the topic of umami there. We got the name of the movie out of the way. We talked a little bit about our weird season with, our first world problems, getting to snowmobile every day, but dealing with the wind issues.
A lot of hanging out on the lake, eating lunch.
A lot of cold hangouts on the lake. Dude,
and we got into snooze. At least I was Mark Wilson. I went on a K2 trip with Mark Wilson, who's a gibber guy.
Yeah.
Ended some VG stuff. He's really sick. I'm a big fan. When we were down in the States, it was raining the entire time in Iowa. And he introduced me to the General. And I already knew that you were on the snooze program, but I had never really dove into it. But it's $5 down there.
Yeah, it's so cheap.
So I tried one, and I was like, I kind of like this.
Yeah.
Came back, $30 in Canada.
Yeah, it's fucked. I quit. I quit at the end of it.
I quit too.
It's like, it's just kind of one of those things. Like I've never been much of a smoker. So it's like, but nicotine's still really nice when you're cold and you're on your sled, and it's like a nice little vice to have.
Yeah. Nicotine's a nice drug by itself, but all the other additives and weirdness and other stuff, I mean, like, I don't know if I can get behind that, but I mean, I do like The feeling of like
Little head
that
rush.
little like head rush, and you're sitting on a lake and it's windy and it's like, well, I'm having fun in my own head.
I know. And it's funny. It's like shitty as it sounds, like it can be taxing out there when you've been at it for a week straight and you're not getting anything done. And because of that, everyone's stress levels are high. Everyone's spending all this money to be out there and you haven't been successful and it's cold and it's windy. And now you're a week in and you're just sitting on your sleds in a lake and the clouds rolled in. It sounds kind of shitty, but it can be nice to just have a little vice. Like Belzeal's is candy. Belzeal always has candy in the backcountry. And sometimes when you're just sitting around waiting, he's like, fuck it, I'm busting out the candy. And for a while for me and Rusty and E-Jack, it was snooze. And yeah, I'm pretty stoked to say I've like just stopped cold turkey because it was just way too expensive. But oof,
Yeah.
pretty nice. We'll see how this winter goes.
We'll see how this winter goes. We'll see what the stress
If
level's
E-Jack comes
like.
back from the States with a bunch of cheap pucks of snooze, it's going to be hard to say no.
Yeah, E-Jack, if you listen to this, bring up a bunch of snooze because I have a feeling next
Send
year is going to be.
snooze.
Well, hopefully it's not. I think you said you sent us a little forecast for next year. Did you send that over?
That was Rusty.
The blob?
Yeah.
Do you believe that?
I knock on wood. I really hope that's wrong. But what Rusty sent over is this like almanac prediction. I don't know if it was Farmer's Almanac. It was just this prediction of what this winter has in store for us on the West Coast. And it looked very similar to this like kind of ocean looming storm that was hovering over us for a few months in the 2014-2015 season, which is the worst season on record we've had in 30 years. That was the season that we filmed the video part for Transworld Origins.
Yeah, I didn't have a good year that year.
Yeah, it was brutal. Anyways, I hope that's not true. I feel like those things are
Predicting
never fully
the future is
accurate.
always seems like
predicting the future of
that
weather
far
is
away.
touchy.
I don't know.
I just don't think humans have dialed that yet. I don't think we're that good
I don't
at
think
it.
we're on it.
No.
I mean, we all listen to the weather. We all get up in the morning, check the weather. It's like most of the time you could just look outside and get a grasp for what the weather's going to. If the clouds are rolling in, maybe tomorrow's cloudy.
Yeah.
If they keep getting a little darker, maybe it's going to rain.
I like to use it as the weather forecast. I'll still OCD over all of them. Clear, dark sky, the star forecasting site, all that stuff. I just love to check as like, just kind of a guideline. Oh, this is what it should do today. And sometimes it's bang on, but sometimes you're just like, what the shit? What
I
is
wish
this?
my job I could be bang on sometimes.
Yeah, dude.
Imagine if
that'd be
every
nice.
job you're like, I'm good at this 60% of the time. Who else can be good at their job 60% of the time? That's some bullshit right there. Meteorologists,
right?
you got to step up your game.
Yeah, figure it out, weatherman.
Yeah.
Okay, circling back to Manboys. So we talked about the Manboys. We talked about Umami movie this year. Our premiere is coming up in Whistler on September 27th, everyone. So that's about a weekish from now, roughly.
Yeah.
We're dropping this podcast. Yeah, so September 27th in Whistler is the world premiere of Umami. We're having it at Millennium Place, otherwise known as Moore Young Arts Center. If you want tickets, if you're in the area, if you're Vancouver, Squamish, Pemberton, Whistler, and you want to come, or maybe you're in Washington and you want to come, head to artswhistler.com, search the Manboys, and you'll find it. But
It's already sold out at 9 p.m. So
Is it? Is it
yeah,
gone?
it's only the 7.
Oh, shit.
And this is coming out in a few days. So most likely it's going to be sold out, but check the 7.
Check the 7.
Not,
There's definitely still seats for the 7, but yeah, 9 p.m. is probably gone by now. But either way, we'd love to see you there. It's a dress up party. We did that last year and we're kind of making it a bit of a tradition now. We did it last year on Halloween, but this year, just for no reason other than Woodstock being dope and it being the 50th anniversary of Woodstock, it's a Woodstock themed premiere party. So get trippy.
Yeah, get trippy. It's going to be crazy. We're all excited that you're going to check that out because it's going to be good. We put a lot of effort into it.
Yeah, we did. It's a bread and butter. So we're
It's
stoked
a bread-
to show it with the world. Oh, and it's going online on September 28th, right? On snowboardermag.com.
It is. Okay, so winding down here, who do you have to thank, Chris Rasman? Any thanks? You want to say a last few words here?
Oh, dude, that's...
Oh
I
my
hate that
God, his
question.
head
Yeah,
exploded. That's what everyone does.
Well,
I
because
always
it's
just
like
give-
such a...
People the opportunity at the end
Okay.
to say some shit.
Well-
or maybe you just got a sweet quote for everybody. Or maybe you're like, yo, follow my Instagram. And everyone's like, what?
I mean, I think if I thank anyone who's supported me along the way, anyone who's like believed in my snowboarding, like sponsors, like LibTech and Rip Curl are huge ones for me. I do want to thank them specifically because Rip Curl's a new one for me, but they're really down and they're a rad brand. And yeah, they eat, sleep, and breathe standing sideways sports. And I think that's dope. Other than that, thanks to everyone who loves snowboarding. Thanks to all the listeners.
You got a pro model board with LibTech, don't you?
Yeah, I do actually. So thank you, LibTech and Travis for providing that opportunity. But my second pro model board just hit shelves recently.
What does it come in, a 151?
Yeah, 151 with the edges sanded down.
It's a Forum Street Dweller.
It's a 159 mid wide right now, just one size. But we're going to be expanding out of that after this year. But right now, yeah, just limited size 159. So if that's your size and that's the board you want, go cop one. Otherwise, all good. You can buy something else.
Right on. And if you're interested in foiling, just make sure you hit up Rasman. You and Rasman can start the community of foiling, because I think there's about 8 people.
Anyone have any? Well, there's a lot of people in Hawaii and Australia, but yeah, in Whistler, there's probably not that many. But any foiling questions, hit me up. Nick Moore, I want to give a shout out to Nick Moore in Halifax, because he actually hit me up about foiling and I got him started. He had a bunch of questions and he's fucking frothing on it now. He's into it. The Blaze King himself.
That was his nickname, the Blaze King. I've never seen somebody have so many different rolling papers, and like he had every single like little knick-knack you could possibly ever want for rolling a joint.
That's hilarious.
Insane. So yeah, shout out Blaze, and thanks for tuning in, everybody. Yeah, keep it tight, be a nice person, and thanks for coming on, Chris. You're the man, buddy.
Thanks for having me, Jody. Let's do this again.
You bet.
See you guys.